Welcome back to the Way Out Recovery Hour. I'm Bob Sheritz. We are in studio today with Steve Markley, Program Director of A Light of Hope, and also Tim Trarig, founder of Light of Hope. And again, what an honor and a privilege it is to be sitting in the room with you guys who help so many individuals and families out there. You guys use a model called APGs, Alternative Peer Groups, right? We know that with young adults and with teenagers, it's not always drug use.
Right.
It's not always drug use that gets them through the door. That teenagers who get off track, well, anybody really, I think it starts younger than teenagers, but certainly for whatever reason, when there are emotional or behavioral issues and a kid starts getting off track, that within that teen's brain, they don't always know how to ask for help.
Right.
And so sometimes it will manifest in a lot of other behaviors. And if a parent or a school official or somebody who's watching that kid or who knows that kid can see those signs, they can oftentimes step in and be able to help them. So how does alternative peer groups help with other issues, and what sort of other issues are you guys facing, other teens that walk through?
Great question. I'm going to start with just the idea that, whether you cope by smoking weed or you cut yourself to somehow alleviate the emotional pain you're feeling inside, or you starve yourself because somehow that's having some control over something that feels out of control, or even picking really, really self-destructive relationships. I mean, just this last week, there was a girl who was in a crazy relationship with a guy, and it was on the news, and she literally has been convicted of participating in his death because they had this toxic relationship, and she was telling him he should kill himself, and he did. I mean, that's acute, that's very extreme, but you can get in unhealthy relationships as well as part of your problem. And so the alternative peer group gives examples and the ability for this baseline to say, look, I was once where you are, and I found something that's changed me. As you said earlier, it's all within us to have a full and happy life without needing to escape or distract or numb. And so the alternative peer group, number one, we want to welcome anybody that walks through our doors. Some people are dual diagnosis. They may be on medication, bipolar. We're not there to treat them. We're there to offer a support system as long as they can be appropriate and fit within that. We have some standards. You don't come looking for sex. You don't come bringing drugs, and you don't come with violence or weapons. And those are our kind of main, tenets of what we're about. And if you can fit within that, you're welcome. The model of APG started in Houston, Texas, through the Palmer Drug Abuse Program, which was the first adolescent 12-step program in the world, and 40 some odd years ago. And it was this grassroots, from the heart, families helping families, young people helping young people, that morphed into something that was amazing. And Power and Prestige, quite frankly, destroyed it, almost completely killed it back in the day. I ended up on 60 Minutes, Conflict of Interest, with some treatment programs. It was a lot of fun, I was 19 picked to come to California because Carol Burnett's daughter had gotten sober in that organization and had wanted us to come out. That's how I ended up in California in the first place. So at 20 years old, I was running that thing in Beverly Hills. But that model of youth helping youth and providing some structure where your 14-year-old girl can come, and we've got people there that are going to make sure that she's not getting hit on, that there's not going to be someone bringing in drugs and getting somebody high, that kind of stuff. So there's some structure and support to it, but then it's still this grassroots thing that, on a Saturday night, I hung out, we bowled, I ate some pizza, and we played card games. And at the end of the night, when I go to sleep, it's like, I had fun tonight. My brain is actually going, I didn't get high and I had a good time.
Right.
I believe the key is we all long for connection and intimacy and relationships. So this gives a forum to start creating bonds and connections. And our common denominator is, I don't want to live the way I was living. I want something better for me. And that goes across the board.
Well, and a lot, if not all, now I wouldn't say all, but certainly a lot of drug use or unhealthy behavior starts with the idea that I want to fit in, that I want to be a part of,
Sure.
that I want that connection that you're talking about. And let's face it, you get a kid who's socially awkward at 12 or 13 years old that stands around watching everybody interact and wishes that he could, and all of a sudden he finds a group where the only social skills he needs to have is here, Pat, let me hit that,
Right.
and all of a sudden that connection takes place. The bond that is formed inside of those drug connections are very, very strong.
Right.
And so when a kid comes into an organization like yours or ours, and now we're trying to teach that very same thing, but let's take out the destructive behaviors and let's put in the healthy behaviors, and the same connections inside of the brain click. Oh my God, I am a part of now. I am comfortable interacting over pizza or bowling or whatever. And I never thought that I would be able to do that, because what happens with drugs or any other unhealthy behavior is that the residual effects of that longing to fit in is that we or they end up so very alone. Now I'm participating in a behavior that's so destructive that I can't tell even the people that I'm connected with about it.
Right.
And I just get pushed further and further and further away. And so now the very thing that I've been using for however long I've been using it as my tool to fit in becomes my enemy, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're stuck in the middle of that and you come into an organization like yours, I bet you see teenagers who, first time they go to one of those alternative peer groups, they're just like, oh my God, this is what I've been longing for.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. Yeah. We've had some say this is the most fun I've had that I can ever remember, because even when they were partying and using and hanging out with a negative peer group, there was a part of that they knew inside was not right, was not fun. It was, they were being driven by their disease, but they were also connecting with that negative peer group. And when they have that positive peer group experience, it lights them up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So anybody's welcome who walks through your door.
That's right.
You guys have, just to sort of differentiate between who's too severe, who's going to be a good model for you. I heard you say that you provide support inside your organization, but you're not specifically treatment. Right. What is your assessment process for a family or a kid that walks through? How do you differentiate between who needs an outside referral and who stays in your organization, or who gets both?
Inevitably, there's not a formal assessment to participate. Just like if you were going to go to an AA meeting, what's the requirement, because you have a desire to quit drinking. So right. The same applies to what we do, but all of our group leaders, if you will, most of them are trained in the field, but they're not wearing their counselor hat, right? I'm wearing my recovery hat. But if a kid starts to talk about something that's severe, or there's a parent in crisis,
suicidality, or cutting,
any of those kinds of things, they'll either come see me in my practice or refer them to somebody else. A lot of times the kids will come already having a therapist that they're seeing. Now, it doesn't mean they're telling the therapist all the truth, but at least they're starting that process.
And you can coordinate with that therapist once you have releases and all that kind of stuff.
As well as there's a acute care inpatient facility that randomly showed up at our doors one Thursday night in their
I know them. Tim was telling me about that. And I was like, really funny. I know those people. That's cool.
A program called Polaris. And they found us, and they're a part of our group. They participate. They come and hang out on the weekends. So, oftentimes we'll be aftercare if they're locally too. We provide that ongoing support. But that's an awesome thing that we get to do as well. So the idea of, we're not doing drug and alcohol acute care treatment.
Right.
That's what you get to do, right? Yeah. And so an organization like yours is a place we would refer if that kid. Ideally, we get the kid to commit to get 30 days sober. Everybody that comes into our meetings, we say you're welcome for 4 visits, but after that, you have to make a commitment to total sobriety. Even if you're a cutter, we ask you to be sober off drugs and alcohol too, in the name of supporting everybody else. Knowing that simply if I quit cutting, I just find myself smoking more weed. So you want to.
Yeah, that's a whole other big topic, cross addiction.
Right, you want to nip that. Yeah. So after those 4 weeks, that kid has to make a commitment to get sober, and we give out a token. It's called a monkey's fist. It's a sailor's knot that was given out through the Palmer Drug Abuse Program. It's something you wear around your neck. It's this cool little leather ball. Looks like a volleyball. And there's a ceremony. There's a lot of affirmation. You accomplish that 30 days. We give those out. We're giving 3-4 of those a week out.
It's a big deal.
It's a big
It
deal.
is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
That's right.
And that part of, if a kid keeps trying, if I see him every Thursday and he goes, I say, how many days you got? 2. At what point, this isn't working. You may need more help.
Right.
And so in a more organic way, we put the mirror in front of them until they go, I need to get treatment. And so we've used different programs. There's a program in Long Beach, Center for Discovery, that we've sent a lot
Excellent
of kids
program.
to. Yeah, great
Excellent
program. And but now having an IOP locally that we can work with is awesome too, Bob. So
And you're a licensed clinician yourself as well, right?
I certified as a drug and alcohol counselor, bachelor's in psychology.
Okay.
What I do is probably under more covering would be a ministry, because I don't turn anybody away, similar to what we were talking about earlier. I'm there to help those kids wherever they are and work with them from there.
Well, the reason I ask you that is same as me, certified addiction treatment counselor, but we get specific training in identifying the signs of more severe issues. It's important for people to understand that that we are trained in identifying those things.
Right.
And if somebody walks through the door, not everybody is going to be a good fit for our program, your program, or a
That's
combination
right.
of
That's
both.
right.
They're not. They're going to be too severe, and when we refer to different programs like Center for Discovery or Polaris, like you're talking about, or any other organization, that we want to make sure that that's going to be high quality care as
Right.
well. And so
Right.
we form relationships with each other.
Right.
I think that some work certainly needs to be done, not in Santa Clarita, with coordination of care between different organizations, and we could do a better job of that. But we're on the front end of trying to create that, where more of us show up in the room together,
absolutely.
and say, okay. And I think that what that's going to do is, I want to be able to be comfortable sending people to your organization,
Right.
and vice versa. And we're looking for total transparency in all of our organizations, and we work together, identifying these different issues and making sure, ultimately, the reason for this is making sure that the person who walks through your door, my door, or anybody else's is going to get the best care that they possibly
Exactly.
can, and get what they need. It's
Right.
it's not one size fits all.
No, it's not.
It's not. Yeah. So, alternative peer groups started at Palmer Drug. Success rates on that?
It's an interesting
it's
thing.
It's hard to measure success,
I think
right?
you define what success is.
right.
In the 70s, when I got sober,
Wait a minute. Were you like 3 or something?
I
Wait
was
a second.
16. I started doing drugs when I was 12, and I got sober at 16. I ended up with hepatitis C, and all that, and just finished Horvoni, and will hopefully
At 16 years old.
yeah, I was a mess.
Man, you needed to stop.
I wouldn't have lived.
right.
I really wouldn't have. I would have been gone. But so getting clean as a teenager really is helpful for me working with teenagers, because I was the drug dealer at my school one summer, one year, and over the summer I got sober and went back. They all thought I was a narc. It's like, Steve's not getting high. What's wrong with him? And so, I understand that is not that's a difficult thing. So the APG model started out of Houston. The success rate for the treatment back then, they would say 65-70% of
Right.
kids that hung out stayed sober. And success, because we monitor how many monkey's fists we give out, how many people attend our meeting, but not who attends our meeting. So if we're not clinical in that sense, there's that anonymous aspect of what a Light of Hope is. Now, you can get more involved and choose to break your anonymity. You can, be a volunteer or be on a staff. That kind of stuff changes. But
Or go out in the public and tell your story,
yes,
or whatever, right?
Exactly. Did I answer your question?
No, absolutely. It's hard to measure success, but I think what I was trying to get at is that I think it's a very effective model. That's the point.
I agree.
And we certainly, we're certainly not set up to be an APG model, but the same philosophies we use at our treatment center, we're finding already. Now, granted, I've been doing this for a while, about 10 years,
Right.
but our treatment center's only been open for maybe a month and a half, 2 months. But we're already seeing, because we offer that, let's come in and play some drums. Let's go hiking. Let's invite you to other activities. One of the things that I'm finding is I put on our board, I go hiking on this day at this place, and that's all I do is put it on the board, and people are showing up.
That's great.
People are showing up, and so you can see it working. You can see it working, and so it's probably the most effective model, not just for teenagers. You know, I
No,
think
absolutely not.
family members are,
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that we don't necessarily, well, we look at it, but that maybe people don't understand is that families oftentimes become more isolated, become more lonely, become more separated. I mean, you touched on it earlier, right? We grew up in this neighborhood. I've been teaching my kids right from wrong. I'm a firefighter. We're involved in this. We go to, you know, PTA meetings, all that stuff. We've done all the right things. And my kids are using drugs and they're falling off the side. How do I, in my neighborhood, talk about that, right? Because I don't, you know, I mean, I know how. We just talk about it, and that's the breaking of the stigma. But,
That's right.
you know, the stigma is so hard that families need a place to go as well.
Absolutely.
They do, and I think that's what ultimately drives parents and families to a Light of Hope is they get out there and they really feel alone. They try, you know, on their own to try to manage it, you know, make it happen, fix it, and they realize they can't do it. They can't talk to their neighbors. They can't talk to family. They're giving them all this crazy advice, what they should be doing, what maybe you didn't do this, you should have tried this, all that stuff, and finally they just get fed up and they're hopeless. And they come through our doors just looking to connect with somebody because that lack of connection and finding somebody with like-minded, similar experiences that can relate to them, they just don't find it. Or there's nobody's going to talk about it. You know, until you get out there and share, or you have an opportunity to share at your local church or in a club or somewhere your story about what you've gone through, then people start to come out of the dark places and go, hey, that's me, our family's experienced that. And until you get them to a place where they start to experience some healing in their life, then they start to get a little more comfortable to kind of open up about what they're dealing with. And then they realize, holy smokes,
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. My neighbor, they're seeing their own neighbors in our support groups going, my neighbor lives, this is my neighbor, they live 2 houses down from me and we didn't even know. And we've lived together for years because you don't talk about it.
The other aspect with the parents is it's not simply how to empower the parents to change their kids. Yeah. In fact, we challenge the parents to look at themselves, and at times, if someone's really in a destructive path, you have to have the strength to do the intervention, to get them in the acute treatment they need, you know, and sometimes even after that, it's a long battle. So we encourage the parents to work on themselves, to learn to take days off for them, self-care and recovery. Some go to Al-Anon as well as our parent support group, working the 12 steps for themselves. That's another part that's important. It's not simply, you know, if they come in and every now and then, oh, you're Steve Markley, will you help my kid? And it's like, I can help. I can walk with your kid. I can't carry your kid.
We can provide a safe space for them to make some changes, right? But that's all we do.
That's all we do.
Point them in the right direction. Yeah, I love that. You know, one of my favorite things to do is work with families. I do these family groups, and I just always walk away with just a feeling like I have a purpose, right? And I oftentimes will say exactly that in that family. And as I go, look, you may think that you're here because of your loved one. You might think that you're here to fix them. But one of the things that is, I don't call it a requirement, but I kind of do. Here's the requirement for this group right here.
Right.
Is everybody sitting in this room is here for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And
Well
you're gonna
said.
look at yourself and you're gonna make some changes in your life. Because even if they don't, you can still be okay.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's what we really say to them. We tell them that, you know, if you'll come to these support groups as parents, as family members, and learn and grab a hold of some of these tools that you learn in a group like that, I always say this, I can't promise you that your child will get clean and sober. What I can promise you, though, if you grab onto the tools in a group like this, you'll get your life back from the insanity you've been living in. And you will, this might be hard to imagine, but you'll get yourself to a point where you'll be able to be okay, even if your child isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
You can go on vacation and not have to answer your phone 20 times or whatever a day and just relax and enjoy.
Or not go on vacation because you don't know what's going to happen to your house, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
just relax and enjoy
their lives have been so caught up in trying to save their child, and I get that. You're scared, you're fearful, you're trying to do whatever you can, but a lot of what we are doing is not working. I always say what we're doing sometimes is we're feeding the monster of addiction, and that we have to learn how to starve that monster of addiction. And that monster is not your child, it's the addiction, it's the disease they're dealing with. So the tools you get in a group like what we have help you learn ways to be able to see where you're feeding the monster and give you new tools on how you can starve it and create a more recovery, create an environment that's more conducive towards recovery for your child and healing for your family.
Well, it's certainly, I mean, it's really, really important to help people separate the person from the disease, the person from the addiction, the person from the drug use, or even the person from the drug. I think one of the most beautiful programs I've ever, and I'm not a witness to this, but I read about it, and I believe it was started at Betty Ford. They have a specific for kids in addiction where they work with children, young children, not drug
Hazelton
addicts,
did that
but
years
very,
ago,
very
yeah.
young children. And what they do is they try to do something like this. Here's the bottle, and here's your daddy. Your daddy is not a monster. This is what needs to go, and to be able to give that to the families and give that to the kids, so that they understand that your teenager who's using drugs is not the problem.
Yeah, it changes their whole perspective of their child. They come in there literally, and I get it, hating their child, tired, fed up, don't want to see him, get out of my house. You've created this mess. You have destroyed our family.
Right.
And when you can finally help them separate the disease from their child, it changes the whole dynamics of how they view and how they deal with their child.
Yeah, surrender is oftentimes the very first step to gaining control or something,
and
right?
Screaming all the way to the end, right?
Yeah, it's just amazing, to get that concept right there. Okay, we're going to try so very hard to beat this thing. And I tell people, I go, look, it ain't a fight. In fact, wave the white flag. It's quite the opposite. And when you start to let go and you start to surrender, that's when you have some sort of control over yourself and what you're doing,
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful realization.
Exactly. And we work on getting parents out of that state of fear, because so much of our decisions as parents when we're trying to save our children, our decisions and choices are made a lot from fear. We're worried about if I don't do this, if I don't stop that, if I can't control this, if I can't fix that bad things are going to happen. And they could, but we have this false belief that we can control it all and fix it all. And so we live in constant fear and make really bad decisions sometimes from that place of fear. So once hope and healing can come into those parents' lives and they start to get off that roller coaster, they can start to come from a whole different place and make much wiser and better choices that really help starve that monster of addiction.
You had asked before we went on air if we had any stories of success, and there's a family that is very involved. The young person, he's 16 now, met him when he was 12, and he was sneaking his sister's car out in the middle of the night and picking up his buddies, and they were smoking weed, and one day his sister realized the window was down when it wasn't. It was parked a little funny, and that first visit a few years back, 4 years ago, this kid was, his mom said, I'll never get you a driver's license. You turn 18, maybe you'll get a license. And he turned 16 a couple months ago and got a license. He's got a year and a half, going on 2 years clean. Mom volunteers, dad volunteers. His sisters, when they're home, they come to support group, even though they don't struggle with any addiction, but they're a part of this because the family got better through this. And so, that commonality of, overcoming, dark things makes you stronger. And so that's just a kid right off the top that I was thinking of. When he got his driver's license, I went, wow, miracles really do happen, because it wasn't going to happen, 4 years ago.
Well, and if you're paying attention, and you can always put into perspective how it used to be, it doesn't take much to get grateful these days. You can sit back and watch the interaction of those families, and probably watch that same kid today or a couple of years from now go, hey, I'm going to that activity we're doing this weekend, you want to ride? And now he starts giving the other kids rides from the guy who would never get a license. He's now giving rides to the other people in recovery. So, all right, we will be right back after this message. This is the Way Out Recovery Hour. We'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to the Way Out Recovery Hour. I'm Bob Sheritz, and we are in studio at the end of our show with A Light of Hope, a local nonprofit organization that works with teenagers, young adults, and their families, and has really been a light of hope in the last 10 years in this community. Hundreds, maybe thousands. I don't know how many families have gone through your door in the last 10 years and have gotten the help that they need, and what a wonderful treat that is for, sitting in the middle of disorders that seem so very hopeless.
Right.
Yeah.
Addiction and drug use and cutting and teen issues and all the stuff, and the mental health issues and everything that goes along with that world right there can be very dark place and very, very hopeless. And anytime that we can start or open up or give hope to this community and other communities, it's just a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
We have a couple of minutes. We're going to wrap it up. You guys have an event coming up that I want you to talk about a little bit. Is this your big fundraiser for the year?
It is. It's our big fundraiser. This is our 4th year of doing the Be the Light 5K run walk. It started a year ago. We hoped we could get 100. We had 250, and the next year it doubled in attendance. And the next year it doubled that in attendance, and we have over 1,000 that show up to our Be the Light 5K event. So
I want to challenge the listeners in the Santa Clarita community. Let's get 2,500 minimum there. Let's do it. Let's get 2,500 minimum there.
It would be great. So
show up. Tell us when it is.
It's on September 30th, Saturday, September 30th at West Creek Park. You can get more information at bethelightfivek.org. Our registrations will open July 1st. We meet at the park about 6 p.m. that evening, and it is a light spectacular of the community coming together to support recovery in our community, to support a light of hope. It really is a beautiful event visually, because everybody comes with light sticks and light necklaces and bracelets. We have light tunnels that are 50 feet, several of them that are 50 feet long, covered in lights. There's music, there's flashing lights, there's vendors. It is really just an amazing event that a lot of people like, that's open to serious runners. This year we're adding a 10K to our 5K. For the serious runners, they can get time chips, and families that are walking strollers. We have dogs that come all glowed up with their families. It's a great event.
So September 30th, you can get that information on a Light of Hope website as well. Give us your information for a Light of Hope. We got about a minute left, so let's get it out.
Our website for a Light of Hope is alightofhopescv.org. You can reach us at our phone number at 661-513-4325, and you can also connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/a Light of Hope. And you can also find more, like I said, about our Be the Light 5K on BeTheLight5K.org.
This is the Way Out Recovery Hour. Remember that asking for help is the first step. Please contact us at thewayoutrecoveryscv.com or call our number at 661-296-4444. An honor and a privilege to have you guys on the show today. Thank you very much. We will see everybody else next week.